Okay. What up? What up? I have two microphones. Oh my gosh, I don't like how that looks. I have two microphones because I'm on two lives. Hold on. Pin this right here. Today's live is going to be treated like a voice note. Okay. And what that means is oh, I need to update that. What that means is I don't have any notes today. I have no notes. I have just what's going on in my head, and we're going to get on. We're going to talk about it. And today's live is about showing up regardless of feelings. Mm-hmm. Showing up regardless of feelings. Before I fully get into it, I do want to say on TikTok, I am going to update my subscribers, but I am giving TikTok subscribers a monthly behind the scenes access to the Scribe Society. So the Scribe Society is the place where we do weekly trainings. This is all about intuition, identity, self-mastery, self-concept, transformation, if you will. And I do a weekly training every Thursday there at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you are not ready to jump into that investment, but you want to see what it's about, if you subscribe to my TikTok, then I will be giving behind the scenes access once a month. I'll pick a training, and once a month you can see what the training topics are. You can pop in as a subscriber. And then if it's something that you're like, I do want to experience this weekly, which you likely will, then you can go ahead and subscribe to the membership. So anyways, let's get into showing up regardless of feelings. This is, and I'm talking to the women today. I am talking to the women when it comes to this. This is a challenge for many women, especially, and men, but I'm talking to the women because we let our emotions take control of everything. And when we let our emotions take control of everything, then the idea of I don't feel like it makes us not do it. And because women's are emotional by nature, women's Jesus, because women are emotional by nature, well, then what happens is the emotions are fleeting, right? Emotions are an up and down thing. Emotions are they're constantly, moving, pivoting, changing, whatever. And so to show up regardless of feelings means that no matter what is going on behind the scenes, you still show up and do the tasks that you're obligated to do. Whether you are heartbroken, whether you are going through a breakup, whether you're going through a divorce, whether you are sad, whether you are happy, whether you're excited, whether you are motivated, whether you're not motivated, whether your energy is low, right? You still show up and do the tasks at hand. Now, when I say this, I don't mean this in the patriarchal sense of like traditional 9 to 5, you are on 10 every single day to make sure that the job gets done. What I mean by that is showing up daily, regardless of feelings, means you understand yourself so well that you have systems set up in place so that on the days that you don't want to show up, then you sorry, I got distracted even on the days that you don't want to show up, you are still showing up to some capacity. You are still showing up in some type of way, right? And so this can look like having systems in place where some of your content is scheduled. Okay. If you are very in tune with yourself and very self aware, then you are aware of what time of the month you are not going to want to show up. And so you set up systems to do that, right? Maybe what that looks like is showing up daily looks like, okay, instead of going live every day this week, I'm actually going to schedule a little bit more content to be posted out. And instead of 5 lives this week, I'm going to do 3, right? Regardless of how you feel. And this is cyclically talking if we're getting into the cycles. Now, if we're getting into the commitments of showing up in a certain way of showing up in a certain way, regardless of feelings, taking cycles out of it, well, then that's not necessarily about the systems. The systems still the systems still have to be in place. But what that means is if you made a commitment to yourself in business and you decided I'm going to do these lives Monday through Wednesday, for example, or I'm going to post this week or whatever it is, then regardless of how you feel, when you wake up in the morning, you still have to complete that task. That task still needs to get done. And the reason that we get caught up in not finishing the task, there's several reasons. One of the reasons we get caught up in not finishing the task, is because we let our emotions take over. Well, I don't feel like it. So because I don't feel like it, I'm not going to. But then that's a lack of commitment to yourself, to your future, to your prosperity, to your abundance, right? Like that's a lack of commitment within. The second thing that comes up is something happens externally and you don't hold the energetic space to say, hold on, I still have to complete these tasks. And so what happens then is now you are not showing up due to a lack of boundaries, due to people pleasing, because you don't want to upset the people around you by taking the time that you need to get the task done that you have set for yourself. And so you, now that you're people pleasing, your energy is being what is that word? X something. It's, you know, it's external, right? You're letting external forces take over what you are meant to do internally. This also happens if you're not in tune with your intuition. One of my favorite creators and coaches and consultants, and she's all the things, but one of my favorite creators said intuition is a skill set, and she's absolutely right. Intuition is a skill set because in order to be able to tune into your intuition, you have to have deconstructed everything that you were taught as you were being raised in, I was speaking to Western society, in Western society. You have to undo all of that. You have to learn how to listen to your gut feelings. You have to learn how to trust what your intuition is telling you. You have to learn how to understand when your intuition is guiding you through something and when your ego is trying to sabotage something. You have to learn the difference. This takes skill. The same way that learning to write is a skill, learning math is then a skill that you have, learning to read is a skill that you have, learning intuition would be a skill that you have. And so you were not taught this growing up. Nobody taught you, more than likely, at least not in school, that's for sure. Nobody taught you how to understand your intuitive voice. Nobody taught you how to understand ego. Nobody taught you how to understand belief systems. If they were instilling belief systems within you that didn't line up to being able to trust yourself. I've talked about this before. In school, especially, they teach you that all of the answers are outside of you, that they're within the authority. In religion, they teach you that a higher power is a source outside of you, right? That it is not something within you. That's at least within the church. But if you read the word says it a little bit different, right? And so this is taking it back. Intuition is a skill set. And so your intuition does not fleet. It's the emotions are different, right? Emotions are what's fleeting. Emotions are what changes day to day, minute to minute, hour to hour, whatever, right? Emotions are the thing that changes. But the intuition and the guidance from the intuition, that does not change until it needs to change, until you've completed the task and now you're ready for a new task, right? Until you've obeyed and now you're ready for a new message to obey. Now you're ready for new guidance to obey. That is when the intuition shifts. But the intuition is not fleeting. It does not change. It does not give you all of these different answers all the time. It is not, that's what emotions do, right? That's what the ego does. And honestly, if we actually take it a step further, the ego's job is really just to show proof of certain belief systems. And so if you have an old belief system circulating in your brain, right? From something that came from school, from a caretaker, from a parent, whatever, you have old belief systems circulating. Well, the ego's job is just to find proof to solidify that belief, right? To make you truly believe in that belief. This is why when this you hear of like ego deaths and stuff, right? But what's really happening is you change a belief. You change a belief and the ego bucks back because the ego's like, well, that's we have proof of the old belief. So then you have to consciously learn how to rewire the subconscious in order for the ego to show proof of the new belief. That's how that works. And so once you understand those internal voices, right, that are doing, like, the ego and the belief system, then you zone in on your mission, on your tasks, on what it is you're meant to be doing. And once you're zoned in on that, on the things that you're meant to be doing and the tasks at hand, that is how you start to show up regardless of how you feel. You can ask anybody who is successful, who is a few steps ahead of you, who, has like, we'll use business for example, right? Who has more of a business that you desire than what you have right now, and they majority will tell you the same thing. They showed up regardless of feelings. Think about this in terms of the gym. Think about this in terms of gym motivation. If you only work out while you feel like working out, the key word there is feel. If you only work out when you feel like working out, would you be able to build the muscle that you desire? Would you be able to have the muscular strength that you desire if that was all, if you only worked out when you felt like it? No. It requires discipline, it requires a level of consistency, and it requires knowledge of what exercises you're going to do to build certain muscles, right? Energetically in business, it is the same thing. If you want to hit a certain revenue target, you can't just do it when you are feeling motivated. It's going to require discipline. It's going to require a structure. It's going to require a strategy to get you to that point. And so, with that, because what we as humans like to do is we like to believe that if you can't see it, it's not working. Humans will sit there and say it's not working because they can't see the proof yet. But do you know what those words do? Those words then get fed into the ego, and then the ego shows that proof to an old belief. This is why people stay stuck in a loop. You're staying stuck in a loop because you're letting your feelings dictate if you're going to show up or not, instead of just doing the work that you're supposed to do. You stay stuck in the cycle because you keep showing yourself proof of it not working instead of holding the faith and being as some will call it, the anchor, right? And holding the faith that the work you do now are the seeds planted for the harvest later. But see, we as humans, we don't like to look at it like that, because then that's uncomfortable. And when that gets uncomfortable, well, then we're going to retreat back to what's comfortable. And what is comfortable is what we knew, right? That's our happy place. That's our comfort zone. We like prediction. Humans like to be able to predict things. This is why people will stay in a 9 to 5 when they don't belong there, because they like the paycheck prediction. We like to predict what's going to happen. We like to know what's going to happen. But see, all of that is a facade. We never know what's going to happen. We have tricked ourselves into believing that we always know what's going to happen if we stay in our certain routines, if we stay structured in a way where nothing changes. But see, things will throw a curveball at any point in time. Things will throw things will something will get shot out of left field or whatever you want to call it at any point in time. Anything can throw off a routine, but we have been conditioned to believe that if we stay in our routine, that it is safe, that nothing can harm us that way. Like I said, the paycheck prediction, right? If we stay in this 9 to 5 we hate, at least we can predict when we're going to get paid. But then what happens is corporate layoffs will happen, and then people will complain. People will be like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't expect this," right? And then we go into a tizzy. We panic because our predictions were wrong. But the irony in that, and the reason that that is a facade, is because if you are continuously creating every day and doing the things that you are set to do by way of your intuitive guidance, then you can still predict what's going to happen in your reality, because now you're creating your reality. See, that's what's very interesting, is we've been fed the idea that if we follow a certain structure that is given to us by somebody else, that life will be predictable. But that's not how it happens. That's not actually true. Your life happens by way of your subconscious beliefs. Your reality happens by way of what you believe to be true underneath the surface. And so when you have these subconscious beliefs, then this is actually what's making your reality. So if subconsciously you believe that you're safer in a 9 to 5 because of the predictable paycheck, well, that's what's going to be your reality. Now, if subconsciously you believe that you're safer starting a business and being in charge of your own reality, then that's what's going to reflect back to you. That's what's going to become your reality. If you subconsciously believe that it is better to, what's another example? Let's think. If you subconsciously believe that exercise is better in the morning. No, that's a terrible example. I'm not giving another example. I can't think of one right now. I told you I didn't have notes today. I'm just kind of chatting. Um, but yeah, this is the point is if you allow yourself to be dictated by feelings when it comes to your business, when it comes to entrepreneurship, really when it comes to anything, but we'll stick to the business topic for today. If you allow yourself to be dictated every time by your emotions, then you're going to stay on a roller coaster. It is up to you to recognize the pattern, recognize the structure that is happening, recognize the pattern, recognize the cycle, recognize all of these things, and then disrupt it. I want you to picture ocean, right? Let's do a lake. Let's do a lake. I want you to picture a lake and it's windy, right? So the tide is coming in, but lakes do not have as strong of a tide as the ocean, right? So the tide is coming in and it's very predictable, right? One little wave washes up and goes back out, and then another wave washes up and goes back out, and then another wave washes up and goes back out, right? And so you're watching this and you're all nice and mellow and you can see this flow. You see this flow of the time. This is your cycle. This is living life cyclically. But then you're like, I'm sick of this. I don't want this. This actually, like, this pattern is not good for me. So then I want you to imagine that a boat goes by. Well, what happens when that boat goes by? It disrupts the pattern. A jet ski goes by, it disrupts the pattern. Right now the waves are all a little bit chaotic, and so that's the key piece, is the waves will look chaotic when you throw your disruptor into your patterns. Right, things are going to look very chaotic when you disrupt your pattern and disrupt your cycle. But what happens after that jet ski passes by, after that boat goes by? The waves go back, they just have a new pattern, they have a new cycle. Right? So even though it looks like chaos for the moment, because you've disrupted your cycle, your pattern, your whatever it is, then after that, it goes back into a new cycle, into a new pattern. Okay, and so if you want something to change, if you want to get out of these start and stop cycles, if you want to stop, you know if you want to, I've got to turn my notifications off when I'm on live because there's just way too many. I don't get any notifications till I go live. Anyways, if you want to change the pattern, you're going to have to throw something in to break the cycle. And it's going to feel chaotic for a little bit. And this is taking it back to the whole point of this live. This is why you cannot only show up when you feel like it, because you're constantly, if you're growing and you're evolving, what you're constantly doing is you're constantly breaking patterns and breaking cycles. Things will feel chaotic for a little while. But what you have to do is you have to still show up and do your task at hand and follow through on the strategy and follow through on the intuitive guidance that you have and all of these things in order for you to see the other side and get into the new cycle. Because if you throw something in to disrupt the cycle and then you end up stopping right then and there, well, you're just going to go back to your old cycle. Once it, because now that it got what felt like chaos, then you're like, never mind. And you're just going to go back to the old cycle. But then what's going to happen? You're going to disrupt it again. It's going to feel like chaos again. So then what are you going to do that time? Are you going to revert back to the old cycle, or are you going to push through to see the new cycle? And so that's really what it all comes down to, is when you're evolving, when you're in the midst of transformation, when you're up leveling, right? Everything will feel chaotic. Everything will feel weird. Everything will feel out of place. But the point is to keep showing up as if everything is normal, because this is how you start to create your new normal. This is then when you get to that new normal and that new reality, and all of these new things on the other side of that. This is also when nervous system stuff comes into play, but I'm not getting into that today. But yeah, you need a disruptor, and you are the disruptor. If you need to change something, you're the one to disrupt it. And so you have to be the disruptor, disrupt your own pattern, disrupt your own cycle, and then keep showing up when it feels so strange and weird and all of the things. And then eventually it's gonna seem a little bit more normal. And then what's gonna happen? Well, now you've hit a new normal, and then something else is gonna come up. You're gonna be in a new pattern. You're gonna be like, wait a second, this one doesn't work. Let's do it again. And do it again. But each time is going to get a little bit easier. And the reason each time will then begin to get easier is because now you understand what's going on. For one, you recognize your ego voice. So you already know the tricks your ego is going to try to play to keep you in those old beliefs, and you can move through it quicker. That's really what the key concept is too, is being able to move through things quicker each time. The first time you do something is usually the hardest. It's usually the worst. And this is life advice for anything. Your first breakup, the worst one, right? Your first whatever, right? The worst one. And then you because it's new. I remember when I had my first breakup. I'll tell you a quick story. I remember when I had my first breakup, and I was a teenager and I was all heartbroken or whatever. And my dad was the one who told me that. He was like, the first one is always the worst. And then the next one wasn't so bad. And the next one and so on. Because what ended up happening is I knew I was able to get over it once, so I could do it again. This is what will happen when you rewire your beliefs. You know you've been able to rewire one belief, so you can do it again. And then you could do it again. And then you can do it again, right? And so each time you're going to recognize the little tricks that your brain plays on you, the little tricks that the ego plays on you, the little voices in your head that and what they mean and things like that. Like, I know for me, whenever I get in a state of like, oh, I don't know, like that's not me. That's the ego talk. That means I'm about to break through something, because that's the first thing that's the first trick my ego will try to play on me, is that I don't know. But I do know. So that's how I know that's how I know it's fake. But it took me a while to catch on to that little ego trick. Everybody has their own different ego trick. For some people it's I don't know. For some people it's who will listen. For some people it's you're not smart enough, or you know what I mean, like all these different things, right? All these different things come up, and the first couple times maybe you really believe that, and that's why you stay in a loop, in a cycle, because you believe it, so you retreat. Then once you learn how to understand intuition versus ego, well, then you recognize it for what it is, and you're like, that's an ego trick. And then you can move through it. And what's interesting about that is, as you develop more knowledge on the ego and understanding more about the ego's tricks, well, then the ego will get smarter. So then you'll have to pick up different things. The ego will learn new tricks and all kinds of stuff. And then this gets into the topic of self-sabotage. Then you will self-sabotage thinking that it's the right move when it's not. But anyways, that about wraps this one up. So that is today's live. showing up regardless of how you feel, especially if you're in the midst of an up level, because it's going to feel uncomfortable. You're going to have moments where the feelings of good vibes and all that are not there. You have to show up anyways, because what you desire is on the other side of you consistently showing up and continuing to show up. So again, I will reiterate the subscription. So if you do a subscription on TikTok, that does give you a little bit of behind the scenes to the Scribe Society. You will get to see and sit in on one of the monthly trainings. So I'm thinking I'll do the first of the month. So maybe June's first week training. But anyways, you'll get to sit in on the monthly trainings. And then you'll get a couple little bit other like behind the scenes content when it comes to like intuition, identity, and things like that. I currently have 3 spots for one-on-one coaching for women underneath the Energetic Empress. This is for women who want to learn how to digitalize their skills, listen to their intuition, and grow or scale or start their online business using their skill set. A lot of it is the energetic and or spiritual side of entrepreneurship. So DM me, Empress, if you're interested, and I can get the application for you. But I do have 3 of those spots available. And then the Scribe Society is always taking new members. So you can also pop over to the link in my bio and enroll there. Other than that, I will see you all tomorrow. Bye.